Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we talk about the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. It's our pleasure this afternoon to be coming into your homes and to be talking about the goodness of the Lord. Welcome to another in the series, Sip and Chat, a place where we examine the issues of lives, the highs, the lows, and more importantly, how do we overcome the challenges that we face? Because we are survivors, and survivors never quit. We stay till the end. This afternoon, I am very excited. I have a guest who is very accomplished, a young lady. She has been an attorney at law, legal counsel for over 17 years. I mean, when you see her, you maybe think she's a young teenager, but that's what the grace of God does. And she's also an accomplished writer. Four of her short stories have been enlisted by the Commonwealth Short Story Assessment Body that gives prizes, and she will talk more to us about that. I mean, this lady is very close to the culture of Jamaica, and we're going to talk about how that evolves in her work as a writer. But most importantly, my guest today, who is Sharma Taylor, is also a believer, a woman of faith. And so that is also what makes it double exciting as we engage in this discussion. Welcome, Sharma.
Thank you, Doc. It's so amazing to be here. And
Yeah,
I'm
it
so
is
looking
my
forward
pleasure.
to our time. Yes, thanks for having me on. It's an
It's
honor.
always so good, you know. I believe one of my responsibility on Sip and Chat is just to highlight just the work of a lot of young adults, young people, Christian people as well. But we do all kind of persons on the show, but also to highlight, a lot of accomplished persons and how, people need to understand that you don't need to separate your faith from your
Correct.
professional
Yes,
journey because
definitely.
a lot of people lose their Jesus en route to seeking fame and fortune. But how
True.
lovely it is when we are able to say that through it all, God
Yes,
has been faithful to me and I have been
definitely.
faithful to him. So that's what
Definitely.
makes it like it's like double Grammy.
I so can relate to what you're saying. And I
Mhm.
mean, you talked about accomplishments and stuff in the intro. And to be honest, when I hear you talking, I'm like, it's me she talking about. But no, it's through the grace of God,
Mhm.
definitely. The doors that have been opening, including to publish this book,
Mhm.
definitely through the grace of God. So give him all the
So
glory for it.
welcome, Sharma. And I know that a lot of our guests today will be inspired by the stories of our own life as well as the stories that you have captured in your book. So Sharma, tell us a little bit about who is Sharma Taylor. We have just looked at the nice bio that is published, but talk to us a little bit about who is Sharma Taylor.
Okay, who is Sharma? Sharma is a daughter, a sister, a friend, a believer, as you say. I consider myself someone who's curious, who's creative. I like to learn things. I like to find out new things. I love to travel, I love to meet people. I'm very direct. I'm very upfront, candid, and just an observer of people and things. And I appreciate the simple things in life.
Excellent. So when I read in my research about you,
Hmm.
I recognize that from very early in your about 8 years old, you had a passion for writing, and I
Yes,
know that, and most naturally, most persons who like to write often come from background of also liking to read.
yes.
So talk to us about that passion. Was it like there was someone in your family who also liked to read, or where did that passion? Where did you start recognizing that passion? Was it something that you observed, or it was just innate?
Well, I come from a small family, growing up with my bigger brother who's 6 years older than my mom.
Hmm.
Dad was away in England, so it was really just the three of us, and we call ourselves the Three Musketeers. But the thing is
Was
that
that more verb than a noun?
so we were very close, but at the same time, if you're when my brother was 12, I was 6. There's no hanging out with your 6-year-old sister when you're 12,
Exactly.
and so I was sort of in a way, books became my world. They became my friend. So
Hmm.
I would literally just live in the world of my books. So
Hmm.
Enid Blyton, you name it, any book,
Right.
I would read it.
So were
And
you like a Bob's the twins, Hardy Boys,
all
or
of
that?
that.
Oh,
Yeah, Nancy
okay.
Drew,
Okay.
the works, Sweet Valley High, you name it. I was
Oh,
reading
great.
everything. I even think I read maybe some Mills and Boons in there. I don't know how I got my hands on those, but I was a reader. Like anything, the newspaper. So the Gleaner would come to our house every day, and I would read the Gleaner. So my mom is a primary school teacher, retired now. So she fostered that love of reading, and my brother is the same. On a weekend I'd be in my room reading, he'd be in his room reading and reading things like military histories and war books, because in my home reading was encouraged, you know, and it's not something somebody had to say, oh, let's pick up a book and read. We wanted to. We loved learning new things and finding out new things. So that was the kind of home in which I grew up.
All right. So tell us a little bit about your setting as a family in terms of it. So in Jamaica we talk about uptown, downtown, middletown, wherever.
Well, I said
because one of the things that we kind of think of that is that the persons who wake up in the morning and like to read, most times those are from a certain background. But no, I've come to recognize that sometimes it's just something that's innate, and even as parents, we can build those cultures into our household.
Definitely.
So it doesn't matter where you live. You can say, okay, every day you're going to read probably a few pages or a book or something.
Yes. And I've told the story before in other forums about my mom taking us to the supermarket and the book counter being right by checkout, and I would be the one saying, "Mommy, can I get a book? Can I get a book?" And then she having to make the real decision to say, okay, which items of groceries I'm gonna put down so that I could buy the book. So I know what that is like, and I would say even now, I mean, we still have libraries, we have people can borrow books, books are so accessible even now. It's one thing that you don't have to have a lot of money to be able to enjoy and to read, you know.
Read. So you grew up in in a culture of reading, and you just took off, basically went to high school, then to university. And then when did you do your first publication?
So I was writing short stories from I was a teenager. So at the time, the Literary Observer had an editor called Wayne Brown, a Trinidadian poet and writer who was living here. And I did a workshop with him, and my short stories were being published on Sundays in the literary magazine at the time that he edited. Okay. So I would have been around a teenager at that time when my story started to come out.
Okay, great. So, all right. So tell us, when did you do it? Because you have done like 4 pieces that have been shortlisted, right, by the Commonwealth, English Commonwealth Short Stories Review. So talk to us a little bit about some of those 4 books, and then we're going to get to the main one we want to discuss today. What are the title of those books and so on?
So those were 4 short stories. So between 2018 to about last year, I've been shortlisted 4 times, and they're various subjects. So I've tackled things like human trafficking, racism, you name it. Like I do my stories based on things that would interest me and that are topical or messages that I think I want to transmit in my work. And the first one that was shortlisted was called Son's Birthday, and that is what actually became this novel. So we can talk a little more about it.
So today now I want to talk about this novel that I find so inspirational. One person described it as tender, viva, and authentic. Another person says rich and exuberant, which is Claire Adam, author of Golden Child. So Sharma, talk to us about this work, What a Mother's Love Don't Teach. Because first of all, just the title alone is like, okay, then what could that be? Talk to us about What a Mother's Love Don't Teach. What is that about?
Okay, so it's my debut novel, and I'm actually very proud of it. It is centered around Dinah, who is a helper. So this novel is set in the 1980s deliberately because I wanted to explore what happens post-70s with the whole ideological battle between communism and capitalism and what it meant for Jamaica, our economy, our politics, and looking at it from that broad lens. So 18 years before this novel begins, she is working with an American expat couple living in Jamaica, and they're childless. And she is 18. She has an unexpected pregnancy, and they say to her,
which is really typical in our
real
Jamaican
typical,
society.
right, for her boyfriend at the time. And so they said to her, well, give us the baby because we can give the child more material things than you can. And she agrees. They're about to leave the island, but they promise that they will stay in touch. They'll keep her up to date on how the child is doing. And she gives up her baby, who she had called Son at the time of birth. Unfortunately, they never got back in touch with her. So and again, this was before internet, all those things. She can't track them down.
Cell phone.
Yes, cell phone. She can't track them down. So 18 years forward now, and when the story begins, she's working for a different couple in Jamaica, and they are hosting American friends who are visiting the island with their son Apollo. And Dinah, meets this boy, and she's convinced that Apollo is Son's son. That's the baby she gave up 18 years before, and who it happens that this all happened on what would have been his birthday. And so the novel explores what happens after they've met and the ramifications of that. And how it changes the lives of everyone, including Apollo's parents, including the people in the community, Lazarus Gardens, where Dinah lives. And, this is really, for her, she views this as her second chance to be a mother, because she never had any other children. He was her only child. And she never quite got over the loss of him. And so the title, What a Mother's Love Don't Teach You, is in one conversation, she says to him, there are certain things a mother's love can't teach you, don't teach you, because she's trying to teach him how to be a man, how to be a decent human being, how to be kind, how to be forgiving, how to love, how to put others before yourself. And at one point, she's just like, there's just so much I can teach you and no more. Some things you have to make the choice
for yourself. So one of the things that we can start exploring in this discussion is that sometimes a mother's love will cause a mother to make a decision that causes her pain.
Right.
Because I'm sure that in the case of Dinah, having gone through some of the stuff in the book, that this is not a decision that, all things being equal, that Dinah would have made.
Yes.
But in her review of her current situation, she saw a window of opportunity, though it is causing her grief and pain, that she was willing to provide for her child's son, and so on. So talk to us about this whole matter in our Jamaican society as we explore the choices that moms have to make.
Yes, and it's very interesting because the decision that Dinah made was based on her belief that this would give her child a better material outcome. And we see it in society in the flip side where the parent goes away. So in this case, the child was sent off.
Right.
She recognizes that even if she gets to go to America, there's no way she could give him the quality of life that this couple could have. But we see it play out in society, of course, where parents, both and sometimes or either one, leaves a child behind, or children in Jamaica, go to America, go to England, go to Canada, send back the barrel that have the tide and the school supplies and everything. But the question is, at what cost? So I know it's a very difficult choice for a parent to make because you're weighing, okay, I'm going away, I'm going to make a better material life for my family. But at the same time, on the child side, it is sort of, well, the parent's absence then now creates other issues. They may be with people who don't care as much. And
it's really amazing because as we talk about this whole concept of the choices that moms make, one of the things that the barrel cannot carry is love.
Yes.
It cannot carry love.
Yes,
it can carry the Nike. It can carry the cashmere sweater. It can carry the Jordan
shoes.
And the Clarks and everything. But a barrel cannot carry love. And we know that a lot of times parents, they have to make those choices.
Tough choices.
And so sometimes children are hurting. In the case of the book, it was a child who was sent away. But there are many times that the parents leave.
Yeah.
And we see the ramifications of that in our society.
Exactly.
Even as the story is set in Lazarus Gardens, right? Where it's we see the culture of the crime and the violence. Do you see from your perspective, even as a writer, where some of these choices that parents have to make, and they make them from a place of love, a place of love, right? But can you just talk to us a little bit about how we can see manifesting in our today's society where those choices has led to some of the pitfalls that we see in society and how it has negatively impacted our youths?
Yes, I mean, sociologists tell us that young men gravitate towards gangs and the gang leader because they're looking for that father figure. And the fact of the matter is that some of the choices that we make are really trying to seek that parental love and support. We see the effects of gang activity in Jamaica, whether through lots of scamming, other scamming, crime, and so on. In the book, I explore through various characters who have that mother loss or mother wound, as I call it.
Right.
It challenges them in terms of, am I worthy enough? Am I good enough? Is there something that I did that led to this lack of a parent? How do I then become a woman or a man without that guidance, that support in the way that I would need? And it leads them to certain decisions. So one of Apollo's friends who he meets in Lazarus Gardens, Damien, his mother went away when he was 12. Dinah then helped to raise him, but she was fleeing, political persecution because she lived in a garrison, and someone who was jealous of her spread the rumor that she voted for the other party in the election.
So
she had to run off.
Capture all of the social
thing. But then she ran off, and then she never heard from her again. So I mean, there are good outcomes sometimes and bad outcomes, but what's left is a child trying to grapple with the fact that the family unit is fractured. There's no getting around that. And is the level of support that's behind, whether through grandparents, aunties, or whatever, that will really determine the success of that child.
I think that's so important. I want to really push that today here on Super Chat in terms of choices, in terms of parenting, and no fault of parenting. Fault of persons. And people sometimes do parenting. Oh boy, I'm youth them,
Yes,
spread my loins and
yes.
stuff like that. But there's so much more to parenting. And if our families that have both parents, children still suffer with
Yes.
issues of low self-esteem
Correct.
because you could
Correct.
still be trying to make him that almighty dollar to give your child something, but not being there physically.
Yeah.
More so that family where your father is not here and your mom is not here. Just imagine how if you don't put in those fillers, so to speak, whether it's an aunt, an uncle, a church brother, a pastor, or somebody who constantly reassures them of how valuable they are,
Yes.
how these things can impact
Definitely.
children. And so the agents of change in our society, like our schools and our churches, must understand their role in helping to shape children. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
It's one thing
agreed.
to come to church and preach a good
Agreed.
gospel, and sometimes gospels that fly over the heads of people as well. And so on. But, I think one of the role of the church is to ensure that we identify some of these gaps because, a lot of children are hurting.
Definitely.
Why
definitely.
did my mother have to leave? Why is it that grandma, instead of my mom or my dad, has to come to my parent teachers meeting or so on? And how do we explain those sacrifices that parents have to make? And I know that they're real. I mean, my own mom, I recall her saying to me, because of where my home was, so close to the main road I lived at the time, and how in terms of employment, I remember saying to me where she used to work one time, the man said to her that no, she used to go to work, like she said, at 8 and or 7 thereabout. And then she said one time the gentleman, because she said she used to work at a restaurant, didn't even know this. She said that the gentleman said to her that she now had to reach at 6 to make sure that breakfast was ready. And then my mother was like, here I am making sure that I'm feeding so many people when I don't even know how my children were going to go to school. And at that time, my mom also made a decision that, hey, I have to give up this job. What it meant is that we didn't have a lot of stuff, and then it was just my father then who most of the financial pressure was on. But and children too need to appreciate as soon as they understand the sacrifices. That is why I'm telling you, I work in an institution. I get very, very agitated when I see children whose parents are they're there, they're underground, they're moving to and fro, and they're making the sacrifice necessary for these kids to succeed. And some of them just playing what we call playing the fool. But talk to us, Sharma, about how was Dinah able to survive? Because I know that faith played a very pivotal role in Dinah. And as believers, I just want to talk about how Dinah survived during this crisis. Her one son, so to speak, gone.
Yes. So good point, Doc. Dinah is a Christian, and I'm unapologetic about that in the novel. However, I make no secret about my faith. And in this case, the church really was like the life raft for Dinah after she lost that baby or gave up the baby and never heard from him again. So in the novel, that faith community is important for her. Her church community helped to keep her afloat, essentially, keep her hopeful. And in one scene, Apollo actually accompanies her to church. She's agnostic, and she's trying to show him, about her faith and what her belief system is like. And in one scene, he says to her, like, how can you believe all these things, and also how can you believe in a God who would allow you to lose your son? And she says, it's okay because he understands because he lost his son too.
Wow,
and,
that's powerful.
And that gives him food for thought. And that's deliberately in how I wrote this book, that I'm not trying to knock people over the head with my Bible, but the fact of the matter is we live in a country with more churches per square mile than anywhere in the world. Faith is very important to us culturally, but I'm putting it in a way that it fits into what the story is about, but transmitting my faith because it is important to
Sharma, I'm smiling because you know what? A lot of times we have a lot of people who say, I'm not a preacher, I'm not a singer,
I mean, and they don't see themselves as evangelists, right? But in your own little way, you're evangelizing through your book, and
Yes.
that is also something I want to pick up on, right? Before we close the discussion. But to get back to the matter of faith, and you said this that for Dinah in the story, though a novel, right, a fictional novel,
Yes.
right? Dinah in the book, church was her life raft.
Yes.
People would probably wonder why I'm so attached to church, not as a building, but I'm attached to church as an institution of people.
Yeah.
The ecclesia, the called out one, because we are in a broken society that needs healers.
Yes.
And so you can't get it from home, you can't get it from school, but the church is supposed to be that haven. Because then I found rather a different life raft. There are a plethora of other things that could have happened to Dinah.
Definitely.
But when you come to the true source where you have inspired people that mean you well, it's amazing. Oh, in the midst of your difficulties, when you should sink, you can swim and ride the tides of hope. And so I really want to endorse that and commend the church communities and church families who see themselves as this haven of hope to stretch out that lifeline to people, whether it be emotional issues, whether it be financial issues, whatever those issues are. I have no problem in church having a lot of money. You know why? I feel it every time when somebody comes to a church, out of my church, and they ask, it's back to school. How do you feel when a parent comes and say, listen, I have this book list and I can't meet these needs, you know what I'm saying? It's so important that you said that. But also, as you said earlier on, we need to understand that in our own little way, through the different mediums, through your books or through whatever, we can still talk about the goodness of God.
Definitely.
Oh my God. I want to talk about the goodness of God.
Yeah.
Sharma, just talk to us a little bit as you're about to wrap up about what faith has meant for you in your journey. I mean, I know you're still very young. There's a lot more to explore, but in your time here on earth, how has your faith been the catalyst of what's good and just surviving the challenges of life?
Every day, every morning I get up, I say, God, I need you to sustain me through today. I need your favor, I need your wisdom, I need your understanding, because I've had situations in life. My mother was sick. At some point, she was really sick twice, and I remember at that time I was still early in my career, and I remember coming from the hospital and throwing myself on the bed and saying, God, I can have friends I can talk to, but nobody can understand what I'm going through but you. And I think coming to the end of myself, like realizing honestly that I can't influence the outcome of anything in my own life. So I have to surrender everything to God, and everything that has been good about what has happened in my life, I owe it all to God. Every bad thing too that I've learned from, I owe it to Him as well. And I can't imagine. I sometimes say to myself, how do non-believers navigate life? Because without God, I just couldn't do it.
And the strangest thing, Sharma, as we close, there are some persons who might not be fully what we call Christians, but they have this strong faith in God. And so, as we always say here on Sip and Chat, there's never enough time. But Sharma, we'll definitely come back to talk more about some of these issues in the book. But you have to get your book. Just tell us where we can find it, Sharma.
You can reach out to Kingston Bookshop. Their purchasing manager is Jermaine Sims. If you're not in Jamaica, please tell your friends and family about it. They can order it from Amazon UK. So the UK Amazon. In Jamaica as well, you can get it through Rebel Women. It's an online bookshop. But please go out and buy it. Please go out and support. I really appreciate it if you do.
All right. So sometimes when we think about gifts to get for persons, we can definitely get one of those books. And I just want to remind somebody today that success is not fatal. It's not final. What influences how you survive is how you respond to your failures. Once again, it's always a pleasure talking to you, our guests out there on Sip and Chat. We want you to know that God's got you. God's got you. Just like how He's got Dinah and He's got Sharma and myself, He's got you. And wherever you are today in your situation, you just need to look to the hills. Wherever you feel that connection, just look to the hills from whence cometh your help. Because your help, just like Dinah's help, cometh from the Lord. who is still creator of heaven and earth. Until next time, it is always our pleasure to have you here with us on Sip and Chat. And remember, you need to get your books, What a Mother's Love Doesn't Teach. You can get it on Amazon UK, or you can get it in the bookshops. God bless you, Sharma.
Thank you
Until
so
next time,
much. And
we'll
thank you for
continue to
having
sip
me.
and chat.
Cheers.
Mhm.